Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, we've got a little bit different than some of our normal fare, and something that I've gotten lots and lots of requests to build over the last couple of months and even years for that matter. And this is a brand new kit out from Wingnut Wings, and it is their Albatros D5. But this is a special edition one. This is the one of Manfred von Richthofen, which many of you guys may know. This is the Red Baron, the famous Red Baron, the ace of aces in World War I. He is accredited with 80 aerial victories and just, you know, the top aces of World War I. Now, I had been toying with the idea of doing a World War I airplane because it has some advantages over World War II airplanes. First of all, there's no canopy we have to worry about painting. But there is a thing called rigging on these airplanes that we do have to do, and we're going to try our luck at it. I've got some of the Ushi van der Rossen flexible twine that we're going to use for all of the rigging inside there. Should probably have started with the Fokker D7 because there's virtually no rigging on that one. This one has a little bit more, but that's something that I actually want to build as well. But this one is the hot new release out. As you can see, I've gotten a couple of cases of them in, and they've been literally flying off the shelves. But so I'm going to go ahead and give my attempt at building one of the Wingnuts. I've heard nothing but positive reviews saying they're the Rolls-Royce of model World War I airplanes. So let's get started. First thing I thought I would do for you guys is, since a lot of you aren't familiar with Wingnuts or maybe have not seen inside the kit, I thought I would just show you all of the sprues before we start cutting all the pieces off. And you can see this is the main fuselage, and there's some nice detail inside of that. And then we have our engine sprue. It has multiple variations on it, as well as 4 different types of propeller that you can see inside of there. And we've got the 2 sprues that make up the struts for the wings, as well as the landing gear. And also the machine guns are inside there as well. Those on the way. We've got, this makes up most of the body pieces inside for the fuselage, as well as some of the wing struts and some of the other little parts, some of the exhaust, things like that. And finally, we have the actual wings themselves. And they are a one-piece wing. There's not a top and bottom. This has got some nice thickness to it, and you can see all of the detail in there, including all of the lines in between the fabric. That'll make it look really nice once we paint all that up. We also have a very large sheet of decals, as you can see here. And believe it or not, this is actually small in the amount of decals that a normal Wingnut kit has. And sometimes Wingnut kits will have this size decal sheet, but sometimes 4 or 5 sheets inside of them to do either the lozenge or any of the other variations in the paint scheme. So lots and lots of options with that. And then we also have the photo etch that comes with it. We have the seat belts, as you can see here, and I think these might be the guards over the machine guns that we have to roll. I'll have to take a closer look like that. And then, of course, some of the other little metal parts, as well as the sights on the machine guns as well. And then probably the best thing is the instruction booklet. The instruction booklet inside a Wingnut kit is just incredible. They have lots and lots of photos of the real airplane, some nice color diagrams to show you how exactly everything goes together, and great for painting too. They really explain everything, how it goes together. And then rigging diagram, so you can see what we're in for when it comes time to do the rigging. As well as, when you get towards the back, all of the color plates, and then they match it up to the real airplane and show how they got right down to the weathering effect on the upper part of the wing. Still kind of debating at this particular moment in the build. I'm thinking about possibly doing this one right here because it's going to have so many colors on it. The purple, the yellow, the red, this green color. I mean, the real flying circus. But then because it's the Red Baron, I don't know. We might just go ahead that one. That one just looks so plain compared to the other versions that are in here. And this kit also has a set of decals for the Rodin tri-decker plane, the Fokker DR1. Now, obviously the kit's not inside there, and they make that very clear, but they actually gave you the decals to build this one up right here as well. I wonder if they're possibly down the road, they're going to be doing one themselves. Okay, we're going to start off by assembling the engine. And what I'm going to kind of do is just kind of dry fit these pieces together for you to give you a general idea, to show you how it's going to go together and what it's basically going to look like. What we're going to do after this, though, is we're going to build up some little sub-assemblies. And with those sub-assemblies, we are going to be able to paint accordingly, because a lot of the parts of the engine are obviously different colors, and trying to paint it after you build it is going to be just that much more difficult. But you can see how easily, and I'm going to do some more sanding on some of these parts right here, but you can see how the engine goes together. Fits really, really beautifully. In fact, I was just even test fitting before we even started filming, and just was super impressed with the way everything goes together. And rather than show you each one of them so you can get a general idea what the engine's going to look like. Now, the bottom portion down here gets painted in aluminum. A lot of these parts get painted black. There's also some brass colors, things like that. What I'll try to do is I'll try to build up these little sub-assemblies, paint them, and then show them to you. And then just before we do the final assembly on it, we'll show you what each one of them looks like maybe. I have to kind of see, after we get it all built and painted, each one of the sub-assemblies, how they'll go together. Okay, we've got most of the engine parts painted. I'm just doing a little touch-up on the exhaust part here. And we've painted basically all of the parts a gloss black. I took Alclad's aluminum, painted the bottom the aluminum color, and then for the top, since we already had it the black, all we had to do was go over and spray a quick coat of dull coat on it to kind of give it that kind of semi-gloss coat. And then we're using brass and like a rust color to fill in these parts in here. Now there are a few other parts that we need to go ahead and put on, but I just thought now, while we had the opportunity, we can start painting up some of the little detail areas. There's also going to be some detail areas in here that get painted a brass color. There's the magnetos that need to get put on and a few other parts, but you can see Wingnut just does a phenomenal job on just making a beautiful, beautiful engine on this. Now I'm just taking a little metallic powder on a brush. I'm going to wipe a little bit over, and what that's going to do is going to make all that little detail that was all kind of black a little while ago kind of all pop right out. And you can see we've got the majority of the detail painted on the engine. And the only other thing we have to do now is, after this fully set up and make sure all the paint's dry, we are going to do a little bit of a wash on there using Tamiya's black panel liner to really make all these little nuts and bolts all pop right out. Now I'm building up the cradle that is going to hold the engine in place, and it's rather delicate, the different pieces, but everything fits very, very well. The main thing we want to really focus on in this is getting each one of the arms to be perfectly straight, and we'll have to mess with it a little bit. We'll put even a little bit more glue on it. That's how I worked on the first 3 of these here. And that's like I said, we want those to be perfectly straight, and then we'll flip it over, and then we can actually mount the engine inside of it. What I'm doing right now is we have the cradle built up, and we've painted it XF59 Desert Yellow. Now I'm just taking a little bit of Tamiya's brown panel wash, putting it on here, and then we're just going to take another brush and kind of streak it on, and hopefully this brush is pretty stiff, so we should get some nice wood grain pattern. Now you're not going to see most of this because of the way the engine's going to be inside there, but in case you do look down, you will be able to see a little bit of that wood grain show up. Here is a completed picture of the engine mounted in its cradle. The only thing that those little 2 holes are for the oil tank, which we are painting silver, and we will apply that pretty soon. And the only other thing we have to do now is just put that black wash but I'm going to let this all just set up overnight. I want everything to be completely dry and cured so we don't have any interactions between any of the paints, but it's starting to come along pretty nice. Okay, now we're going to start working on the cockpit and the interior of the airplane. And as you can see here, we've got quite a few little areas for the ribs to be installed. And I've gone ahead and I've glued up the 3 rib pieces as well as like the little back wall here for the seat and all parts of the cockpit are going to be. Now what I did is I glued those up, but then I actually put them in here into the right position and let them dry that way. That way they all line up really well with those grooves. I also made a little mistake there, or at least I told you about a little mistake. In the beginning there I was telling you about putting the ribs on the engine first to make sure they're all straight. Turns out the 3rd rib in is got quite the angle to it there, but it was not a problem. We were able to just bend that piece in place and we got it so it'll snap right in there, so not a problem. Now when you actually go to build this kit, and you'll notice the instructions, the engine is not the first part, the cockpit is the first part, but I wanted to build the engine as a sub-assembly. I was so excited about it, and that's why the engine is built first. When you actually do yours, you will see that you're doing the cockpit first. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spray this side as well as the other side of the fuselage with XF59, and then we're going to use the same wood brown or brown accent from Tamiya to create like a wood effect in here. And then we'll spray a couple of coats of like real light coats of semi-gloss to kind of make it look like a plywood particle, plywood, not particle board, plywood. Now you can see here, you're not going to see a heck of a lot of the inside here of the cockpit of the wood walls, but you will see enough that we want to make sure we do all of that really well. So I'm going to go take that right now and spray it, and we'll come back and show you how the panel liner goes on. Okay, to do the wood grain, we've painted the inside of the cockpit with XF59, the desert yellow. We've also sealed it with Tamiya's dull coat, so it is completely sealed in. We won't bother this paint. Now we're just taking some of Tamiya's panel liner, and we're going to actually put it on kind of thick. In fact, I'm using a different brush because the brush that comes in it is just not going to put enough on quick enough. And just kind of brush it in all these little areas in here. And then just taking a dry brush that doesn't have anything on it, start streaking it. And you can also take a cotton swab and in some areas take out excess. Remember, you're only going to see the tiniest little portion of this. And just keep going back and forth. And you'll start to see the streaks inside of it. And we're trying to go for like an older type of plywood. And after that dries, we're going to put a coat of gloss coat, TS13, on it. And then the final thing that you'll do is taking your XF59, just go lightly dry brush over the areas. Now I know there's lots of injection pen marks too, and I toyed with taking them out, but after putting all the parts in, you cannot see any of that at all looking inside from this little tiny opening, as well as in the opening through the engine area. So that is going to suffice for our inside, and we've also done same thing for the cockpit. And you can see how we got to work on the seat a little bit more, but that is about all you're going to see through the top. Now I'm going ahead and putting in all the little parts inside the cockpit. And I'll show you a few of the things I've been working on. These are the little sub-assemblies. This is the fuel tanks, and on the other side of one of the ribs here are the machine gun chutes for where the ammunition goes. And you can see we've painted it brass, as well as gone over it with our Tamiya black panel liner, and then wiped off all the excess to kind of give it a dirty, kind of tarnished look. And that will fit right inside here behind the engine. We're also going ahead and painted up things like this. Hopefully we can show you this. This is that little oil drum on the side here. I accidentally painted it silver earlier, then found out it's actually supposed to be a brass color with silver straps. And this is the last part I haven't done yet, but what we're going to do is take our panel liner and run it on both sides, and it has a tendency to hide any mistakes you might make. And then you can always just take cotton swab and just get off any of the excess that you don't want on there. But it also makes those little straps kind of pop out a little bit more. I'll work on that a little bit more. We're going to glue that right into place there. Then we've also got these little pieces that we're working on. This is like part of the instrument panel that we've painted the green color and then put a panel wash over all that, and that's going to get glued in there, as well as the stick. So I am going to get all these parts in there. The camera's kind of in the way because you can see it's kind of tiny work, but it's starting to come along pretty well. We still do have to put the seat belts in, kind of saving that probably for the last thing so I don't knock them off. But you do have to put those in before you decide to, you know, glue both sides together. So let me get all these parts in and I'll give you one last look before we start to put the seat belts in. Well, here is our, I'd say about 95% complete cockpit and engine bay, and you can see I've gone ahead and put the seat belts inside there from up above. How that'll look. We've attached them to the back here and then the side down here. You can also see the little instrument panel or partial instrument panel in there. There is one more instrument panel that goes on this side, but it actually gets attached to the side of the fuselage, so we'll put that in obviously on the other side of the fuselage when we put it together. But you can see there's quite a bit of detail that is involved in here. And although most of it is going to get sealed up, I am going to leave off, there's two other pieces of cowl that'll go right here that we're going to leave it basically like that. So you'll be able to see quite a bit of the engine detail, not so much of the cockpit, but enough on there. Now I've started working on the upgraded Spandau machine guns, and they have this little piece of photo etch shielding on it. Put it over my hand here so you can see it a little better. And that was just a matter of rolling that around a 2.5mm screwdriver and gluing it into place. And then once that gets on there, we should be able to glue those right, after we get them painted of course, right into place, right in through there. They'll get mounted one on each side of it, right on the ammunition chutes. So I'm going to finish building those up, and we'll get those painted the gunmetal that they need to be. And I'll see, I might need to glue them in now. I'm not positive if I need to put the whole fuselage together first. But I will work on that other little instrument panel. And then, showing you earlier, the fit is pretty tight on this. It's just a matter of getting the pins to click. And you can see we're going to have a pretty tight fit all the way around. We might have to do a little bit of filling, but I think overall it's going to fit pretty tight. I've just completed gluing the two halves together here, and I'm probably going to have to do a tiny bit of putty work across the top, and that is because looking at all the pictures, it doesn't appear to be a seam down the spine. So this would be one piece of continuous wood, so we'll have to fill that with some putty and do a little sanding on it. But with that in mind, before we do that, we can actually go ahead and start to assemble the tail. And the tail is going to go together fairly simply. There's a left and right side. Then we have the back here that has, you don't want to forget to put those little tabs on. Those are what will actuate the piece. We're going to have to put some rigging on that. And then we can attach that just like that. So we've got that big bird-like tail on the back of this airplane. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those into place right now. Then I'm going to take some masking tape, mask both sides really close up to that line, fill it with our Vallejo putty, and we'll come back and sand and sand and sand until we get a nice smooth surface to go all the way across there so we don't have that parting line anymore. And while we're waiting for our putty to dry, we can go ahead and fit the rest of the tail as well as the lower portion of wheels back here. There we go. And quickly enough, we have the makings of an airplane. Okay, the putty is dried enough that we can take the tape off now. And you might be wondering why I put the tape on it there. I don't want to get the putty anywhere down near any of these panel lines, because that would mean I'd have to rescribe them all later. So this is going to just keep it just into the crack that we need. And since I'm going to let this dry overnight, I thought it would be a good time to put all of the supports for the upper wing in. One quick thing, the instructions aren't super clear about this, but based on the pictures, you want this forward strut to be leaning forward because you don't know if it's supposed to go like this or this, and it fits either way. So that'll get popped into place there. Then it's a matter of getting this support, which will get glued right inside here. And of course, the exact same work will be done on the other side. Now, I want these to dry overnight as well, too. I want to make sure they're rock solid by tomorrow morning when I come to start working on the rest of the plane. So I'm going to get these glued into place, and then I'll come back tomorrow and start working on the rest of the airplane. Okay, you can see we've let the struts dry overnight, so we've got some nice firm surfaces. We've also started to sand up the back of the spine here. I think we've got a pretty smooth surface. We're going to do a little bit of contour sanding with some 2000 grit paper just to smooth it out. But I've also went and rescribed the panel line going across the airplane. That one actually does stay there. Now what I'm going to show you guys is we're going to start working on the upper wing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start working on the upper wing, and we're going to completely build and paint and decal, do everything we can to it before we attach it to the airplane. And that is because there's such a tight little area underneath here to get any type of detail done. I think it's going to be next to impossible because it's virtually sitting on top of the engine. So we have things like the radiator, the bottom of the radiator that goes underneath. We've got the ailerons. We've put all the little tabs inside here for the control surfaces. Now it's going to go together. Obviously the build is going to be super easy, but it's going to be the painting. And I've decided to go ahead and we're going to end up painting this particular model. I think it'll just be so bright and just crazy looking rather than just all the plain red. So you can see we have a purple and green camouflage type upper wing surface, as well as a yellow back and then a red front, since it is the Red Baron. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint the upper surface of this purple and green, and we're going to paint all of the undersurfaces, including the actual bottom wing, this light blue, which is like 10 parts white to 1 part intermediate blue, and then there's a mixture for the purple as well. The green, they're actually just calling out as XF65, so that one we won't have to do any mixing. So I'm going to get it all built except for the radiators because those stay a metal color. We want to leave those be like a drop in. So I'm going to go ahead and build the ailerons, and then we can start painting. Okay, we're about to paint the back of the airplane the yellow color that you see here. Now the instructions call out for lemon yellow X8, which in my opinion is just a way too dark a yellow for what the artwork looks like right here. So what I've done is I've taken it and cut it with 50% white, and actually just put one little tiny drop of the greenish color we had, with the field gray in it, just to kind of dirty it up slightly. Barely noticeable, but it makes a color that's more representative of what the artwork looks like. Okay, we've got the yellow painted, and I'm in the process now of just putting all the little pieces of masking tape on so we don't get any overspray on what we just did. We also have our cowl pieces, the nose cone, landing gear, as well as the hubs that we're going to cut those off in a minute and get those all ready. Now the red color that they're requesting is basically 5 parts red with 1 part brown in it. So kind of like a little bit of a darker brownish red. But I'm going to finish masking all this stuff off, getting all the rest of the wheels cut out, and we're going to paint all of the spars going up, these, as well as the cowl. Hopefully without getting anything on the rest of it. I'm going to definitely finish off painting or covering up the rest of this yellow too. That came out pretty good, and we don't want to make sure we don't get any of the red on it. I'm now beginning to place all of the decals, and we're going to use Mark Fit Strong because these are pretty large decals and there's quite a bit of detail, raised detail underneath that we want to pop through. So you put a little bit of Mark Fit Strong underneath the decal, set it in place like we're doing here, making sure that both of those white and black lines all line up to each other. And after we get it completely all squared away, we're going to put another coat of Mark Fit Strong, and actually probably have to put a grand total of maybe like 3 or 4 coats on there because we really want the detail to pop through this or look like it's actually painted on. Now there's only about 8 decals total that we're putting on the airplane, so what I'm showing you here is the upper wing, which we're going to completely decal and do all the other stuff before we attach it to the actual bottom of the airplane. It'll just be a lot easier, especially putting on the blue paint on the bottom of this. It would be virtually impossible if it was in place. So you can see we've got all of the decals on. We also, I didn't show you a picture earlier, but with the red and yellow already in place as well. Now we're going to be taking a look at the rigging, because that is basically the next step that we need to take care of now that it's been painted and decaled. And I've started to rig up this side here. And what I thought I would do is explain to you the process that we're going to do for rigging. I went looking all over the internet to try to get a hold of some easy line like they recommend, but every place I was looking at was out of stock. And I just so happened to mention to my wife, I said, is there such a thing as elastic thread that you use for sewing? And do they have thin versions of it? And sure enough, she said there is. I was at Walmart, saw this in the sewing section. You get a huge spool of this thread. It's completely elastic, stretches ridiculous amount. Now it's a little bit bigger, so it's good for the 32nd scale. It might not be good for 48th and 72nd, but they probably have other sizes as well. And the only other problem is that it's white, but we solved that problem real easily. We just took a piece of it, soaked it into me as black panel liner, and when you pull it out, you actually get, I'm doing a test piece here, kind of, hopefully you can see it, kind of like a metallic gray. It looks like a steel to me, actually. And it looks like steel and stretches beyond belief. And what we're going to do this is we're taking our drill bit, we're drilling out the hole a little bit larger in each one of the places where the line is going to go. And that is because we're going to put a little pool of super glue inside that piece, and then taking our string on the other side, we dip the other side of the elastic thread into zip kicker, and basically we'll just touch it to it and it'll fuse into place exactly where we need it to go. So we've got all of our upper lines all ready to go here, and we'll just be able to stretch them right into place. And if there's any areas, I see like a few little areas that are a little bit lighter than others, we can always go back over those with a paintbrush and add a little bit more panel liner to it. Now when it comes to the bottom of the wing, what we'll do is we will go in here with our drill bit. Now Wingnut is already giving you pre-done holes here, which are just a touch too small for what we need to do. So we will drill that out just slightly, a little bit more, and do the exact same action, just taking a little touch of super glue inside there. Real small, just enough to fill the hole, so that way we don't have super glue anywhere on the outside of the wing, you know, like on the fabric area. And then using a little kicker on it and a pair of tweezers, we should be able to put it into place. And the reason I'm going through all this right now is I'm going to definitely need the camera not to be between my eyes and my hands when I'm putting that stuff on, or we're going to have super glue and kind of a big mess. That's why I kind of gave you guys a rundown. In fact, what I've done is I even practiced on a piece of just styrene that we had here, and that is what the end results will look like. And I know it doesn't have a turnbuckle on it, but I don't think it's going to absolutely need it. It's strong. It looks like it's supposed to, in my opinion, and I'm pretty happy with it. And now this one I actually went and drilled all the way through. I was doing another experiment where you drill all the way through, tie a knot on it, super glue the knot in place, cut the knot off after it dries, and then sand the whole back right here. And we could even putty that to make it perfectly smooth. And you've got a rock solid surface here. So either way, obviously through the top of the wing, I don't want to have to be puttying and patching. But maybe if there's one that's got a long base to it, we might drill all the way through here to tie the knot. We'll see how it goes. If how well the super glue is going to hold pulling on it, because we don't want to make these super tight, you know, like pulling it to the point where the wing is going to, you know, curve on us. But we want it just enough that that we have a nice taut surface in here. But it's still flexible enough that we won't knock it off. Okay, I kind of said I was going to try to do this off camera, but I do want to show you at least one time. So we're going to take one of these here and see if we can show it to you. Putting a touch of super glue in this elongated hole. And then taking our other piece dipped in the kicker. Pushing it into that hole and giving it a second, and it should, yep, seizes up right away. So you have a nice attachment point for your rigging. Well, it took about 4 hours of drilling and messing up and doing this and that, but I was able to get all of the rigging on, and it is very nice that it's, first of all, very flexible, so we don't have to worry about knocking it off down the road, and actually very, very happy with the way it turned out. This is one of the main reasons I've never done a World War I airplane before, was the rigging, and I think for our first time it came out really good. Okay, right now I'm applying a little bit of enamel thinner on the airplane, and this is actually the second coat now. We've gone ahead and put some brown panel liner into all these little nooks and crannies right here. And it's a slow process, but we're going over it little by little, then taking our brush and then just cleaning up any of the excess. But always going from the front of the plane to the back to look like streaking that might go down the side. And we're not going to go super heavy on dirtying this up, but I do want to break up that stark yellow, and then we're going to use Tamiya's black panel liner for all of the red. I think it shows up a little bit better on the red colors. Well, here we go, guys. Here is our completed model, and I've jumped ahead a little bit on just a couple of little parts that I installed that were not that much of a big deal. First of all, you can see we installed the plumbing for the radiator going from the front as well as the exhaust. We did that our typical way, painting it black and then just using a little rust coating. As we come around to the back here, I've also installed the windshield on there. Did just a little coating around the outside to frame it in. And as we come back around once more, you'll see the prop. Now the prop is not glued into place yet. I put it on. Basically, we've painted it XF59, the desert yellow, and then striped it with some masking tape with some XF64. After we did that, just put a couple of coats of gloss on it and our decals, another coat of gloss, and we have our prop in place. Now, like I said, I haven't glued it on yet, and that is just so I was worried about knocking it or bumping it while I'm moving it. I will glue it on very, very soon, and might even try putting the two pieces of cowl that you notice back over here. I want to leave those off because I think it's a shame to not show off the work that goes involved with that engine. It was absolutely beautiful to put together. Now, overall, I had an absolute blast putting this kit together. The rigging was challenging. There's no doubt about that. The rigging is challenging, but thoroughly enjoyed it. And using the elastic thread really did the job, and I really liked the way that turned out. In fact, so much so, I think I would like to go and actually even build another Wingnut. It won't be the next video, but I'm definitely going to be building some more of these in the near future. Just a great time. And you may notice too, we have our base that we built up a while ago to use for our 109. It was always intended to be a World War I airfield or landing strip, whatever you want to call it here. And now, like I said, it is 40A scale, so the only thing that's really out of scale are the boards, which are just smaller. But in reality, we could have had smaller boards on the runway. But I think it really sets off the vehicle really well. And those are made by Squadron Products. You can pick those up on their website. They have quite a few, and they actually do have a 32nd scale one. I just happen to be out of stock on those right now. So, or I would have built one of those up, and eventually I will build one of the 32nd scale, especially if I plan on making more Wingnut wing kits. Hey guys, and I want to thank you as always for watching. And please stay tuned because we have many more videos coming. And if you like this video, please subscribe and hit that little bell in the corner, and that'll notify you every time a new video comes out. Thanks for watching.